On my nerves.
Hi, everyone. We are live. My name is Cynthia Hale. I am the Domestic Violence Rally founder, and I am also the founder of and the CEO of F.F.T. Helping Others. And this is everyone on our panel. Ladies, if you can go ahead and do me a favor, you guys can go ahead and do a watch party on your own pages if you like. I'm giving you guys the opportunity to do that now. I am going to do that as well because I want to go ahead and forward it to everyone who is watching and give everyone an opportunity to see it with some other members who are on here. And that way everyone can see it very quickly. If you guys can give me a moment. It is on our virtual page, but I also wanted to give an opportunity to people who are watching on our events page to also see it, also see it on our regular page as well. So give me one moment and then I'll go ahead and we can go ahead and start. Give me 1 sec. Let me go ahead and get it started really quickly. So you guys can go ahead and share it. Share it with whoever you like. Discussion.
We didn't see it come up yet.
Oops. I'm going to give you guys the link right now. Let's see if I can share it with you guys. Share. Share. Okay, it should be on post. If you guys go to Domestic Violence Rally, you should be able to see it right now. And I think it should be on the Domestic Violence Rally.
There's everybody.
I see it.
Yep.
Hey, Kathy.
Hey, how are you?
All right.
Fine, and you?
So it should be as a watch party there, and you can definitely go ahead and share with everybody if you like. And so we can go ahead and start. If you guys want to go ahead and start, we can go ahead and start. Like I said, I wanted to go ahead and start questioning. If that's okay, I'll go around the room and just kind of tell everyone's bio, if that's fine. So I will start with each person, go down the line. On my left, it's if you guys are kind of watching it, on my left is Evangelist Patricia Fowler. She is the COO, not only of Virginia, of the Domestic Violence Rally, but she's also has her own line. She also has, I will start with, I hope that I'm not reverbing. I think I am. I am reverbing. My left is if you guys are kind of watching it. Sorry. My left is Evangelist Patricia Fowler. She is reverbing. Not only. Sorry guys, I'm reverbing. She is she's the COO of the Domestic Violence Rally, but also she has Pure Heart Ministry. Down below is Twain Mason. She is from the Purple Blue Project, and I think she also. Okay, if you can give me a little bit more, Twain, I'm gonna let you speak a little bit more.
Hi. I run what is called the Purple Owl Project.
Purple Owl.
What we do is we work with primarily abused children and human trafficked children that are in need of escaping immediately.
Also, if you can give me a little bit more, Antoine, I'm gonna let you speak a little bit more.
Well, and then where, I mean, I have quite the story myself, but I also work as a community analyst for a state senator. And so I'm sort of like the messenger direct link between a lot of grassroots groups to let everybody know what's going on in the true needs. And because of my story and what my boss watched me endure trying to escape living in a basement for almost 3 years when I went missing, is how I got linked up with Cynthia and a few other people. And now I run the Purple Owl Project to help other people that I had found that were stuck and still in those situations. And we are still to this day helping people escape those situations.
Thank you
So
so
I'm
much.
here.
I appreciate that for you telling me that. And so below us is our Commonwealth Attorney's Office, Amy Ashworth. I'm so happy for you to be here and helping us out with this today. I know your bio, but if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, that would be great. And how you deal with domestic violence.
Absolutely, Cynthia. So I've been an attorney here in Prince William County for about 25 years. I started out as a defense attorney. I did a lot of guardian ad litem work with abused and neglected children. I became a prosecutor here in Prince William County in 2005, and I worked in the Special Victims Unit, which does physical and sexual assault, rape cases, and abuse cases. I left the office in 2016, and in 2019, I ran, put my name in as a candidate for Commonwealth Attorney. Spent 2019 campaigning, and one of the issues I campaigned heavily on was domestic violence, how important it is. It's prevalent in every socioeconomic group, and it wreaks havoc, not just on the victim, but on the children who live within the home, the family members who watch their loved ones being abused. And I didn't think the last administration was paying enough attention to those crimes. And so when I was elected, I took office January 1 of this year. So it's only been 5 months. It's hard to believe. We have a deputy in charge of domestic violence who goes through every case that comes in and looks over it. She has 2 senior assistants. So those are prosecutors, all with a great deal of experience, that handle the worst of the worst cases. I'll tell you, I could use 3 more domestic violence prosecutors here in Prince William County. It's that prevalent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my history.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all your work. You guys are doing a great job, and I couldn't thank you guys enough for what you guys are doing for Prince William County. Down at the bottom, we have Gisela Marquez. She's amazing, from not only Voice of Puerto Rico, but she is a psychologist, and I'm going to let her kind of give you guys her bio a little bit, and let her speak on who she is as well.
Okay, so hello everybody. I'm Gisela Diaz. Marquez is my husband's last name, but I never took it. So I get called Miss Marquez many times, and he also get called Dr. Diaz many times. I'm a school psychologist for Prince William County Public Schools, and I'm also the co-founder of Voice of Puerto Rico, which is a nonprofit organization that provide advocacy for the people of Puerto Rico after the Hurricane Maria. I had a lot of experience working in community services, from my first job working with HIV patients during that pandemic, and later working as a counselor for the victims, a special victims unit in Puerto Rico in the Department of Justice, and doing a lot of community services. So I see my role as a psychologist a little different than others. I do a lot of community work within the community to try to prevent things from happening. and also to collaborate with other organizations. And lately I have been preparing to train all the teachers in our county in trauma-informed care. So I'm very excited about that. So that's me, yeah.
And then down at the bottom, we have Kathy Greggs, which is not only the North Carolina Domestic Violence Director for North Carolina, but she is also the military liaison, and also she holds the North Carolina and also the military division as well group for the domestic violence rally. And she's also the co-founder of the Fayteville Pact right now. So, and I'll let her explain also more of her bio. So.
Well, hello, I'm Kathy Gregg. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I mute it? Okay, yes.
No, you're good.
I'm Kathy Greggs, and I am a United States Army combat veteran. I am also a survivor of military sexual assault and domestic violence in the military as well. So I am the co-founder also of Police Accountability Community Task Force. And what we do is we hold the police accountable for their actions. And that's why I really wanted to get involved in the domestic violence and sexual assault, because I feel that everybody should be held accountable whenever there's a victim that needs that assistance. So that's what I do. I took a while before I got justice while I was in the military for my sexual assault, and also had issues during my domestic violence where he refused to give up weapons, and we both were in the Army at the same time. Matter of fact, it was at Fort Lee, Virginia. So everything occurred there, but not to make a long story short. So I love advocating for the people that have voices and no one's listening. And I also do court watch here in Cumberland County for domestic violence. A domestic violence advocate. I was also with the Rape Crisis Center in Cumberland County. Here we have a lot of issues with military because we are a big base, Fort Bragg. So we have some issues, but we'll go into that later. Thank you.
So as I think, am I muted still or no? I'm on mute. Yes. Okay. So as you guys see here, and I hope that everyone is kind of chiming in and coming in, and I hope everyone can basically, let me make sure that I'm tagging in. Hello, I'm happy for all the ladies. Okay. So please bring in your questions. We want to make sure that everyone is bringing in all of their questions, all of their answers. We want to answer as many Virginia questions as we can, because this is a group. We want to make sure that we answer as many questions as we can with the page. And if we can't answer them today, we want to make sure that we answer or bring in the comments to you guys, not only for people in this group, but also for the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. We will send it to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office on an email. That way they can answer it later on and get to it whenever they can. I know that their office is, busy, but I'm sure that they can get to it, and answer whatever questions that you guys may have. So kind of let's jump to it. Let's ask some questions, or, answer some questions that we might have about what's going on in our community. Our biggest thing right now, and I know that we're all kind of dealing with COVID-19, and that's our biggest issue. And so I'm kind of go and address our Commonwealth, because I want to talk to our Commonwealth. I know that right now, everyone's dealing with COVID-19, and not only that, I know that, like I was explaining, there's studies have been done with the APA, and not only that, and Gisela, I know that we can also talk to the Commonwealth, and I can talk to you too. There's been studies have been done with the APA, and I know that the psychologist Nadine Klasko from Emory University has done studies with behavioral sciences and the factors of intimate partner violence. But I know with the pandemic and with survivors or victims fleeing their victims, fleeing their abusers, how can we, as advocates, and being able to have 501c3s, or as a Commonwealth attorney, what are some places, or were some places that you are assisting, victims right now, and how are you assisting victims right now here in the Commonwealth, in Prince William County specifically, and can you answer those things? Because people are probably thinking, well, I'm stuck in my house, I can't do anything, where can I go? Are they even open? And those are probably some questions that they're answering themselves. I can't call anywhere, I can't do anything. So how can we answer those things,
Yes, so the police are absolutely still responding to calls for service. So if there's an act of abuse that's occurring or occurred, victims can call the police. They can, if they have transportation, they can go to the police department and make a complaint. The magistrates are still issuing protective orders. The courts are still hearing protective order cases. My office is considered essential employees. So as part of the criminal justice system, we are the prosecutor's office. So we, look at the cases that are still coming in. We evaluate the domestic violence cases. We assign a prosecutor if that's the appropriate thing to do. We also have victim witness advocates that reach out to the victims and talk to them on the phone. We've set up, we can set up meetings on WebEx where we're as close to face-to-face as we can get in this COVID-19 time period. I myself have even talked to victims via WebEx, so on a video chat about their cases. I know other prosecutors in my office have done the same, or through Skype.
You guys are doing.
The courts are still open. We have a domestic violence room in the courthouse where victims can sit separate from the abuser who may be in the hallway if he or she is not being held in the local jail. So the criminal justice system is still operating. We're not at full capacity, so those cases that can be continued are being continued to a later date. But when it's something that's urgent and needs to be heard, the courts are absolutely hearing them.
Yeah, so we're not at full capacity, but our protective orders still being, like you said, they're still being able to be supplied, whether it be a 24-hour protective order, for victims. They can still be supplied to them immediately for a victim, and a police officer can issue it to them, and so that can be definitely supplied, so that they don't feel like, well, there's nothing I can't do,
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah, and we want them to feel safe, definitely. And your office is still available, and you, like you said, you had a victims unit specifically for domestic violence. What else? I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have a victim witness program that is for all victims of crime, not just domestic violence. Right. We do in the juvenile court where most of the cases are held, because it's juvenile and domestic relations. We have a domestic violence waiting room. So that's a service that we provide for domestic violence.
Yes. What else is being provided for victims in your office, or have you seen, not only in your office, but also through victims advocacies that you have seen through COVID-19 that maybe can continue to assist victims?
Well, so I am essentially the district attorney, right, for Prince William County. And so we are the prosecutor's office. We can't provide goods or services to victims of a crime. We can refer them to primarily we work with acts and turning points, which, have a helpline. They can provide housing, emergency assistance, food assistance. They can provide an advocate to come to court or to help people get a protective order. So that's primarily our community partner that we work with.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of times a confusion that some people may have, is that how you work alongside and partner up. And so we really want to make that distinction, is that we want people to go to those advocacy units to be able to get that help first before coming directly to you. We want them to go and get that help first from those advocacy units, correct?
Correct. My office doesn't really get involved until after somebody's been charged with a crime.
Right. And so that's the main issue, is how can we want them to call the police. We want them to call those places first and make sure that they get a protective order, that they follow those steps correctly. Yes, Wayne.
So that, because see, I'm with the victims straight on, and I understand how you work because I have my bachelor's in criminal justice. I'm also a freelance paralegal. I'm generally the person that is sitting with somebody and I'm talking to you. What is it that you need better? Because I'm understanding that actually the tele is getting more victims to appear than we've ever seen before. And I'm getting that it's actually worked out to our benefit, this COVID, for domestic violence and being able to do televisits, because we've been begging for that, the courts to allow the victim to do tele for a while. But what better stuff? Because see, I have them document everything, so that way you guys can have as much reporting information from the victim. But is there more evidence gathering stuff that a victim can empower themselves with to better help you prosecute a case? That's a number one question our victims are asking. Thank
Absolutely. You. And you know, a great difficulty in domestic violence cases is very often the victim is afraid to proceed with the charges. They may get the charges to begin with, but they end up, you know, either being manipulated sometimes by the defendant or their family, or they are economically dependent upon the defendant. So they end up backing out of prosecution. And that is the most difficult part of handling these cases. And so to help them, you know, really we have to be supportive and we have to provide them with information. And sometimes it means being a little tough and pointing out to them the false narratives that they will create
I'm
to
tough. I'm tough.
justify staying with the defendant.
Right.
And, you know, it's almost like an addiction that we're treating sometimes. And
because we're dealing with the fact that domestic violence, and we know this from a psychological point, that we know that we have dug so far into the psyche that by the time a victim actually starts reaching out for help, there's been such a psychological dependence created upon the abuser that there is the similarity that some people are starting to try to call it an addiction. I try to stay away from that. I really do. Because we do understand the Bitterman's chart, and we are researching it with the military in 1953. Swan is starting to do some great research there as well. I'm sorry, but yeah, I completely see where you are. And when we talk to victims, that's what we do, is we have them know that, look, I understand that you just fought to leave and flee for your life, but the fight has only just begun because you've just now stepped into the ring.
right. So some things that would be helpful as well. I know a lot of victims, you know, providing support, helping them, even sometimes finding a temporary home for their pet, because they don't leave. They're concerned that their dog or their cat will be killed or injured. Helping them document the bruises. You know, when you get punched in the face or hit, it's a red mark, but 4 or 5 days later is when the bruise appears, and the police aren't coming back every couple of days to take pictures. So helping them
Okay.
You know, it seems simple.
Continuation of pictures. Okay.
Take a picture, go to, you know, a store, have it printed out, or use a color printer. They're typically not as good as a photo printer, but
Can you take their
bringing that
phones as
evidence to court.
evidence? If they record stuff on their phone, can you take their phone for evidence?
We can. We typically don't like to do that because it means they're without a phone for a period of
Well,
time. But
yeah, we have them do too.
you know, we can absolutely do whatever we can to help get that evidence off of the phone, whether it means printing it out. But
Okay.
all of the service providers that are helping victims of domestic violence, you know, sometimes you're addressing immediate needs like housing and food,
Yeah.
but building that case and being supportive, getting them a ride to court,
Yeah.
critically important. Our judges right now are not doing testifying by telephone yet.
Okay.
We're working on them.
Okay.
But not yet. So
Yeah.
they still have to physically be in court.
Okay. St. Cloud in the state of Minnesota worked it out with the cab companies that any domestic violence shelter, any domestic violence case from the prosecutor's office, those victims received free rides to court.
Yes, and
It's
my
working.
victim witness program as well can pay
Awesome.
for a cab. But that's, you know, sometimes
Yeah.
just an extra step that
Right.
if there are advocacy groups or people that want to help out, that's a great way to do that.
Yes. You guys are awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate that. I think that we just discussed just a lot of stuff. I'm gonna go into another little segue. I want to kind of talk about, you know, informational stuff for especially kids that we're dealing with in our educational system, and specifically because Gisela, you're dealing with a lot of the children who are in the educational system, and I know that you were we were talking about, especially in Prince William County, right now a lot of kids are just dealing with not being able to have food, and the parents who are not able to have just food and sustenance, and parents who are losing their jobs. How is that being, you know, affecting, you know, a lot of kids? Because right now, the biggest thing is that, you know, everyone is teaching their kids on here, you know, and our biggest thing is being able to educate, you know, our kids on Zoom, and, you know, teaching them on Messenger, teaching them on Zoom, teaching them on, you know, on all this. And so I want to talk to you about how can we better assist educators, you know, to help families, because I know that at one point you were saying that you were dropping off food. So how can we assist educators in our local schools?
Me unmute myself. So this definitely have been a change. Well, first, educators in the schools, and our district attorney will agree with us, we're actually one of the main reporters for child abuse and domestic abuse, because many times the children report to us first, no? They report to their teachers, their counselors, their school psychologists. They spend 8 hours a day in schools, and we have very good relationships with them. So that is, you know, among all the concerns we have, that's one of the concerns. No, we have, we know those families, we know who are those kids who are at risk. So we're definitely trying to sustain the contact with those kids through phone, through Zoom, and through other means, to make sure that they still have a safe way to communicate with somebody if is needed. And with that, we will also include all the other needs. You know, I'm sure in a county that is as diverse as our county, things are very different from this district to district and zip code to zip code. In the particular zip code I work, which is in Manassas, there is a lot of need for food. There's a lot of people who are currently unemployed. So that's one thing that the school is trying to do. We're identifying these families, and we are delivering food to their houses. We're also trying to make sure that they know what resources are available in the community to try to reduce the stress that can potentially increase the violence in the homes. So that is the goal, because, you know, we also have mandated orders of staying home because of the COVID-19. Those are things that we cannot ignore. This is a virus that is pretty contagious. We don't know a lot about how it gets spread. We don't have a vaccine, so we also want to make sure that we provide resources while keeping these families safe at the same time. So we're trying to focus, we have our mental health support groups within the schools, and then we're already identify who those students are that we're aware, and we're just trying to leave the communication open between the parents, the kids, and other members of the community, so they can see the school still as that place to go report, ask for help, etc.
And so how also, because this is like unprecedented, you know, new event, you know, we haven't really seen something like this big ever. And so how, and I was saying something like this in a video today, how can we assist parents when they don't really know how to, you know, one parent may not really know anything about physics, or they may not really know anything about mathematics or something like that. So how can we, because this is like homeschooling 101, how can we, you know, get parents on the same, you know, mental, you know, health, and kind of attach two parents together so that they can assist each other, and maybe have a homeschooling group or something along that line, because this is stressful. It's psychologically stressful. How can...
I'm going to tell you what we're doing in the county.
Okay.
The county, the parents are not homeschooling the kids. That's the education changed the location, right?
Okay.
So we are not teaching anything new in the county. And there is a reason why. Some people ask, oh, well, you know, I can totally teach my kids science, right? But not everybody can teach their kids science. And that brings a lot of other issues with civil rights and, you know, kids not having access. So you cannot provide something for a kid that you cannot provide for others, because that actually is a violation of civil rights. So first of all, so we're not teaching new things. So we want to try to change the language, because we don't want the parents to say they're homeschooling, because they're really not homeschooling. When a parent is homeschooling, they have a curriculum, they know what to do, they know that.
Right.
So this is not what we're doing. So each school have developed a schedule that look different in each school based on their needs. I can talk to you about one of the schools I work. We have a schedule every day from Monday to Thursday. The kids go online at 11. From 11 to 1, they review material, they review their grade level stuff, they read with their teacher, they connect with their friends. That's very important.
Yes.
We want healthy connections, because that is a time of the day that the mom perhaps can do something in the kitchen when the kids is in the computer. Then we also offer either art, music at a different time of the day. I think we do it from 1 to 2, and then from 3 to 4, specialists that come to talk to the kids. Like we have our counselors doing videos and social stories about COVID-19 and, you know, healthy coping strategies. So this is what we're trying to do with the schools. And, you know, well, we have people like me that perhaps don't work one-on-one with kids all the time, which is then trying to help their parents to get connected. There's some parents who still don't know how to do Zoom. So we're trying to get these parents. But, you know, I think trying to change that mentality that we're homeschooling the kids, we're really not. You know, the tests have been suspended, so there's no SOL testing. The kids
Oh, that's good. So the kids are probably like, whoa.
that is our state test for Virginia. So with that taken out, then it's a lot of more flexibility into what teachers can do.
Right.
Teachers are working. They're working online, and for the kids who don't have access, they are, you know, they're doing what they can. I know it is different in other places. It's different in other states. I have heard from other school psychologists that is different, but I think Prince William is really doing a good job. And I would say our Northern Virginia area and how they are addressing those issues, always considering the fact of mental health and how this stressful situation can increase a lot of things, you know, a lot of fears, a lot of people may have sick family members. The teachers have their own kids at their houses. So, you know, trying to balance that. They have been very respectful.
And just talking about that, and I'm glad you brought it up. How does that, you know, coincide, you know, with the stress of, you know, not only with the kids being home and, you know, with teachers having their kids home? How has Prince William County Schools really dealt with the mental health aspect of the stresses, and how psychologically, how a psychologist like yourself really dealt with that in the school systems? And not only with teachers, but psychologically with kids.
So we are providing support to teachers and the kids. No, we have a very strong support system with our school just because of the type of population. We're in a Title I school in a at-risk community in Manassas. So we have very good network, and we are very proactive rather than reactive with our kids. So we're making sure they continue going to counseling. They are receiving their support for those experts, right? And you know, trying to be proactive as a county. Something that the county is planning to do is to train everybody in the county in trauma-informed care. So when the kids are returning to schools, not only they have people who are training, understanding these kids might have gone through a lot, but also to support those teachers in giving them that understanding that this kid may be acting up because something else is going on. So that those are our goal as a county, because as very well you say it, and you know, the American Psychological Association just posted, I think it was last week, a relationship between these stressful times and increase in violence, not only domestic violence, but violence
in general.
You know, they're very stressful times, and people are stressed because of the loss of work. So they're stressed because of being afraid of catching the virus, not having those positive relationships with their communities or their families. So we know these kids are, these kids are more at risk of having suffer from abuse, which is, you know, then it kind of bring other long-term issues, because when we know that abuse is one of those marks for predicting negative outcomes related to adverse childhood experiences.
Right.
So, related to trauma. So we know those kids that are experiencing this, I would say, we all are experiencing this, but especially children are more at risk of not doing well in school, to engage in dangerous activities, drugs, gangs. We also know that this will be a population of kids who may be more at risk of mental health problems, and in general having issues related to health. So we want to make sure that we also are proactive to avoid those things. Something I was thinking when we were talking about last week, as in preparation for this presentation early on this week, it was like what we can do, because, you know, the victims are there, right? And you guys are the resources for them. But what I was thinking, what else we can do as a community to reach these people and make sure that they also have healthy relationships without invading their privacy. Yeah,
Right.
because we know not all victims are ready at the same time to talk about how they feel, right?
Right.
So something that I put together in a little PowerPoint that you can share with your group later on. There's some resources of what we can do. Like if we know a friend who, or those kids, as I mentioned, know that are kids who are more at risk of living in a house with violence, or kids who have experienced neglect, or there's domestic violence in the family. What we can do? Call them, send them a text. Hey, how are you doing? Do your guys need something? Make sure you drop food. Do things for those families who can reduce the level of stress that can cause violence. Because, you know, we do need to stay home. That's the reality. I wish that we can tell you something different. Then what we can do to be proactive to reduce the stress that can bring the violence. That will be a key fact, not only for those families, but for all those family members. And there you are sharing it. For family members who and friends, you know, try to just be proactive. Don't wait for that person to call you. Just check on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we follow that rule of thumb. I don't wait for them to call me. I'm always going, hey, good morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until they get tired.
It works. It works. I'm telling you what, there ain't nothing like an abuser that constantly wakes up in the morning to see some smiling woman's face going, hey, good morning, sister. How you doing?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So
If you go to the next slide.
I kind of like you to take me like step by step, and I don't want to take a whole long time through your PowerPoint because I know we have to get to the other speakers. Because I know that I would like to get to I want to get to Evangelist Patricia Fowler's PowerPoint about domestic violence, and also to Kathy Gregg's for the Lautenberg Amendment. But if you could just kind of real quickly take me through a couple of your key points on your PowerPoint, that would be great. Just a couple of the things on here.
So we talk about the first slide, talk about that relationship, no? So we know household stress will increase child abuse, will increase domestic violence, will increase just a lot of things, right? We know that's what the research said. We also know, and if you go to the next one, we also know that they have been research that support that people, especially children who had suffered trauma under the age of 17, can have adversity long-term, no? And, you know, the ACE study, which is the study that study adverse childhood experiences, is a whole 2-hour training I would love to share with your group, because it talks about something that Mr. Gatterni mentioned. This is not a color problem. It is more predominant in poor groups, but you know, it is a problem that can happen to anybody. It is the same with trauma. Trauma is something that affects us all in different ways, and it has very clear predictors of what can happen, no? So, you know, over some of the rainbow there talk about that. You know, we know people who have suffered trauma as children are more likely to have medical problems, are more likely to not do well in school. And, you know, those are some of the outcomes that we know based on research that happen when people experience trauma. And, you know, one of the traumatic events that they were tested or evaluated in the ACE study was domestic violence and child abuse and neglect. So, you know, we know that correlationship. As I was mentioning before, we really don't know, if you go to the next one, we really don't know exactly where our victims are. We know perhaps our sister is having some issues with her husband, or we have that neighbor that we hear them screaming from time to time, right? Or your own clients. What we can do to make sure that we are being proactive in helping them, because perhaps they're not ready to go to the shelter or go to ACTS, or they don't have a criminal case in their hands yet. But those are things that can help reduce their stress, no? Reaching out to them, send them positive notes and texts, make sure that they have their basic needs. You know, the fact that people don't have toilet paper or basic stuff, this can be pretty stressful, because you have to go to 2 or 3 stores. Imagine you having a little kid, not enough money, or all those things. So if you have extra, why not to give to them, right? And this is kind of something that we have done, and I, Cynthia, know about my husband, mental health practice. He identified that some of his patients are pretty stressed right now. So he's just doing a food drive and having food at the clinic. So when they come, they can take food. So they don't have to worry about those things. So, you know, and share available resources in the communities. We in Prince William have an 800 number for food that if you call, they had volunteers that will answer in different languages, and it will tell you where food is available, where are the food banks, and where they can reach those resources. So you can go to the next one. And something as a parent that you can do, and you know, you can click in those links and kind of see some of the other resources, but talk to the kids about what is COVID-19, what is happening. You know, the other day I was talking to one of the parents at the school, and the kid was terrified of going outside, or she had questions about perhaps why I'm outside, I cannot go outside, but this dog can go outside. So, you know, follow the CDC. Don't look at perhaps some of the news out there that are not very helpful, but these are great principles about how to talk to children. They have books and things you can download in English. A lot of these documents are also in Spanish, and there are documents that easy ways to talk to the kids about it, no? They have coloring books. It's very important that other people, you know, try to avoid overexposure to TV and radio. Can be pretty bad, right? It's bad for me when I found myself screaming at the TV sometimes, right? Especially now with all these reopenings that are happening, that can be pretty stressful for some people. And you know, just make sure that that we are, you know, able to communicate with those, you know, with our families, and let them know, you know, that it's okay. Try to keep regular routines. The school routine will be very important. Keep a calendar. This is the hour that we do reading. This is the hour that we do math. And also be role models. Make sure that, you know, you take time for yourself to walk, to do healthy activities during the epidemic. And I put some references in there of the articles that I use, but you know, there's a lot of resources online, and my email is in the presentation. So if you have any question, just let me.
I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna post your presentation on our Virginia Domestic Violence Rally. If you give me permission, I would like for people to actually be able to see it, and that way people can get an idea and also be able to utilize it for their own, you know, with their kids, and also be able to go to the CDC too, because those are some great ideas.
And from the mental health perspective, I was not only thinking about, you know, children and domestic violence. I was trying to generalize. This is what you will do with anybody, right? That elderly neighbor who don't have a way to get to a grocery store, you know, try
Right.
to reach
That's-
those communities, because the stronger we build our communities, better outcomes we will see.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Um,
it's safer that way to not just designate it as domestic violence, because see, I can
Yes.
pass that information on to a client that I'm working with that the abuser is still at home. And when he looks at it, he just looks at it as community resources and that she's
Yes.
not telling anybody she's getting her butt beat.
Right.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
you.
So I'm gonna go to Evangelist Patricia Fowler. Hello, Evangelist. I'm gonna pull up your PowerPoint really quick. That way everyone can kind of see what I am seeing. And that way, hold on, I'm sorry. I'm gonna pull it up so that you can talk about domestic violence and stuff. I know that you have already worked with ACTS, and I know that you were trained under ACTS, but not only that, you have been a huge advocate for domestic violence victims. A lot of victims, they call you, they ask you for help. And not only that, you've written so many books, and I kind of wanted to state that because you have, you have been out of domestic violence for so many years. And I wanted to address that because I want people to understand who you are as not only an advocate, but a survivor. And so if you can tell us just a little bit about being a survivor and just your testimony, but also I'm going to pull up, while you're saying that, I'm going to pull your PowerPoint up really quickly.
Name is Evangelist Patricia Fowler. I am a survivor of domestic violence. It's been over 20 years, but it's only been about maybe 5 or 6 years that I've been actively, openly talking about it. And then that's where I started the ministry from, the singles ministry at my church called Pure Heart Ministries. And then that in turn went into when I started talking about my story with domestic violence, it just became Pure Heart Ministries. So just being a survivor for over 20 years is a blessing, because I didn't think I would be here today years ago. But also it's very important for people to know that it takes time for you to heal. And I know everybody's story. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Everybody's story is different and people go through different things, but you have to take your own path to your healing. And I always tell people you have to be healed and whole before you can help anybody else. And that's why, although I've been out for 20 years, I haven't been helping people for 20 years because I wasn't healed and whole just yet. It takes time. And still, even when you get to that point where you feel like you are healed and whole, each day you're living, you're still healing. Each time you help somebody, each time somebody calls me to pray for them or reaches out to me on social media to, help them, or they just have questions, or they say, well, how did you do it? How did you get out? Everybody's situation is different. And I never tell people do this or do that, because they have to do what works for them at the time. For myself, on my getting out, it just happened to be easy one day. He wasn't there. I got my kids and I just left, and that was that. So it was easy, kind of easy for me, although it took after 8 or 9 years of abuse to do that. So what we have to remember is getting out of a domestic violence situation is not easy. It's not easy, especially if you don't have support, if you don't have anyone to help you, if you don't have a plan in place, because once you get out, where are you going to go? I have 4 kids, 4 little kids. Where was I going to go? Although I end up going to my mother's house with my 4 kids until I could get on my feet again. But everybody don't have that outlet. So we have to keep that in mind when somebody you may know is in a situation and you may say, girl, just leave him, or you need to get out. It's not that simple. And some people that haven't been in that situation don't understand that why isn't it that just simple? Why can't you just get up and leave? Because you have to think it out, because when you try to leave is the time he wants to try to kill you the most. That's the most dangerous time for a person in a domestic violence situation. So we have to be careful with that. And I have written 3 books. 2 of them are on domestic violence. One is called Triumphant Overcomer, and it talks about my story of domestic violence. And the title of my story is called Love Don't Leave You Bruised. If you know what the true meaning of love is according to the Bible and according to what God says, then you will understand if you're in a relationship and you're getting beat, that's not love. My second book on domestic violence is titled Relentless Pursuit, and that's my journey of domestic violence, what I went through, how it started, and how I got out. You can purchase both of those books on Amazon or contact me personally to get a signed copy. But also what I just wanted to talk about a little bit was some of the things that been going on since COVID has been in place with the stay-at-home policy, how it has affected so many people, and not just in Virginia so much, but across the world, how it has affected and created danger for domestic violence victims. Because for one, the usual relief that we have is not available fully. Meaning, when I say that usual relief, meaning you can call the police and they can come. They may take the abuser out of the home. Because of COVID-19 and all that's going on, that has been not lacked, but trying to think of a better term, better word to use than not available. But anyway, one of the things is the abuser is out of work. So if you're a stay-at-home mom with 3 little kids and your abuser is now out of work, he's home, he's teleworking, he's there every day. First of all, he's frustrated that he's home and has to stay in the house. That causes more tension and he's more apt to create violence. It puts the victims and the children in more violent situations. There's new opportunities for the abuser to exert his control over you. The threats and accusations of if he leaves, he's going to get infected, or if you leave the house, you may get infected. The abuser demands the victims not to use safety precautions, mask and wearing the gloves and disinfecting the house. Some abusers may take offense to that, and that may cause a problem. The abuser's his frustration gets heightened, which leads to more abuse. Also, in some states, the lack of access to the court and limited hours has caused trouble and will cause trouble for people that need to call the police or to go to court and get protection orders. Not everywhere, but in some places. Some people's protection orders may lapse while they're on these stay-at-home orders. And if it's not a new case, you won't be able to get into court right away to get it extended. That will cause a problem for the abuser. Some agencies are taking phone reports and not in-person reports. This could be hurtful or harmful to a victim. You know, if they can't physically get to the police station for them to be seen that they're abused, bruised, that could be a hindrance. Also, COVID-19 has made it more likely that abusers have access to firearms. I did hear on a training I took the other day with Futures Without Violence that abusers have been getting more firearms since COVID-19 has been in session. And also, victims have been unable to make calls or escape to public places. A lot of times the victim may go to their kid's school or go to the grocery store to get away. Right now, they don't have those options because they're saying being told to stay in the home, stay safe, don't go to the store unless it's absolutely necessary, when some victims may go to the store 2 or 3 times a week just to get away. They can't do that right now. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to share, and some tools I have that I want to share for victims is, of course, the nationwide number 1-800-799-SAFE. Or if you want to chat with somebody and don't want to talk, you can go online to the hotline at www.thehotline.org. If you just want to text someone to let them know something is wrong without making a phone call, you can text "Love is" to the number 22522. And you also can ensure that law enforcement knows of any firearm prohibitions that your abuser may have. If they have firearms, if they're a felon and they're not supposed to, you can make that be known. Also, in the worst case scenario, and only if it's safe to do so, you can call 911 for help. Also, you can use an SOS if you have an iPhone. iPhone has an SOS capability. If you go to their support website at apple.com, it has an SOS alert capability. And on Androids and iPhones, you can use an emergency location, sharing your location with someone. And then you have www.disarmdv.org. So those are some of the tools I wanted to share with you today. And again, I'm Evangelist Patricia Fowler, a certified advocate through ACTS in Prince William County. You can reach me on my website at www.pureheart-ministries.com, or on Facebook, Instagram, or you can call me at 540-272-6150. Thank you.
Thank you, Evangelist. I left you for last for a reason. I left you for last for a reason, Kathy. Okay, so the reason why I left Kathy Greggs for last, it's because I wanted to address the Lautenberg Amendment, and I don't know if many of you know of the Lautenberg Amendment. I know probably the Commonwealth attorney, she might know of the Lautenberg Amendment. She's probably going, I don't know, maybe I do. She's probably laughing over there going, well, maybe I do. This is something that we are trying to get addressed at the Capitol this year in October 1st. This is something very important for us. And Kathy and I, Kathy more than I, is trying to head spear something that's very important. And that's why I kind of wanted her to be last, because the military and military members who are sexually assaulted and raped in the military, they need a voice. And we find that those who are being raped or victims of domestic violence within the military have not gotten a voice. And the Lautenberg Amendment have holes, big holes in it, and it needs to be addressed. And so this is something that in October, we hope to talk to a lot of our representatives and our senators. We hope that the domestic violence rally will take the baton and talk to not only some lawyers and maybe change the verbiage in it, but I'm going to let Kathy talk to you guys about it. I'm going to bring up her PowerPoint and she'll go ahead and talk to you guys about that. But I'm going to let her talk to you now. Thank
you, Cynthia. Well, as we discussed domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, anything that involves victims, we must understand that in order for us to actually have the voice, we have to change the law. The law has to be changed. You know, we can advocate, we can go to these different places, use the resources all we want. We can do marches, we can do rallies, but at the end of the day, the law has to change in order to protect the victims and their families. So I'm talking about the Lautenberg Amendment, because the Lautenberg Amendment to the Gun Control Act, which was intact in the fall in 1996. Now with this Lautenberg Amendment, it states that if you have a conviction for a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence, you cannot use, you cannot process or transport a firearm or even ammunition. And the reason why this is important when it comes to military, because we have soldiers that have to be around ammunition. In order for them to get deployed to another overseas place, matter of fact, for them to even maintain their status in the military, they have to actually qualify on a firearm. They have to be around ammunition. They have to transport that ammunition. They also have to carry that weapon. So the issue that we have is, how does that coincide with the actual law? Well, we have problems, because for domestic violence, being in the military, you might lose your career because of domestic violence. So that means, guess what? I no longer have a job. So I might go and do more danger or more harm to the individual victim or victims because I don't have this career anymore. So once again, we'll go back to the previous thing. As I said, it has to be a conviction of a misdemeanor for domestic violence in order for this to actually work. How many people get convicted? Not many. If you go across the board and look at the numbers, even nationwide, there's not many military people getting convicted of domestic violence. They usually get a slap on the hand, on the wrist, saying, yeah, come on back. And then guess what happens? The commander deploys them. So that means the victim or the victims have to start back over the process of getting them for domestic violence, because they're gone.
Please be careful.
They're out of the country. So they have to start back over. And the problem that we have is also, if I'm not a spouse and I'm the girlfriend and that person did something to me, then guess what? I don't get any benefits. So that includes the money that individual will make per month, which is called BAH, basic allowance housing, and the money that they get for their dependents. So unless I'm married to that soldier and I'm a victim and my kids are victims, then I will get that support. So what happens if I'm just a girlfriend? I don't get no support. Okay. And then when I say victims, I mean victims of all sexes, all ages, the children too. So the United States, military across all militaries have advocacy programs that's supplied on each base. With the advocacy programs they go to, which is domestic violence and sexual assault, they have caseworkers which assists them through the process and provide the needs of the victim or the victims, their families, okay? And when they go to these programs, they're assuming that they're gonna get justice, and they're like, okay, give me justice so I can make this right. So everything will be okay with my children. Well, that's not happening, because if it was, we wouldn't have as many victims as we do, and family members, that's out there that's in the military. And we throw everybody away because we're like, guess what? His career is more important than you and your children, and he has to continue this career. So I feel that we should hold the commanders accountable, because the commanders is a climate change that will change the law to make sure that anyone that is even thought of having domestic violence with the protective order, their firearms should be taken immediately. We shouldn't have to wait for a conviction. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to die because we're not following the law that is intact, that has been here since 1996, the law. Now, we can go also into, in December in 2019, they decided to come up with something called a transitional compensation program. With this program through the military, it's for the abused dependents. When it says dependents, that means only the person or persons that military soldier claims as a dependent. So that means that girlfriend or boyfriend, it does not apply to. Only the children it would apply to if they had children together. Now, with this compensation that they implemented in December 2019, it clearly states that you have to have a court, the military person had to have a court martial for the abuse offense. So that means I would have to have a court martial as the abuser in order for you to receive any type of transitional compensation. Okay, now with that transitional compensation program, that entitles 12 to 36 months for any dependent to be eligible to receive medical treatment, counseling, and also funding. Okay, and that's just for the dependent that is under that military individual. Okay, so they are able to receive medical care, behavioral health care. They were able to get services through child care. They can go to the commissary, they can go to the PX from 12 to 36 months, only if that soldier is separated by court martial for the abuse offense. So I keep saying that because does that happen? No, that doesn't happen. That's why we're having this talk today. That's why we're having this talk today, because this does not happen. This law that we have for domestic violence is a law that needs to be across the board. It's federal versus state, it's state versus federal. It shouldn't be.
Then you got military court.
It should be across the board regardless, because we have victims in both areas. As I said, I'm a survivor of military sexual assault myself. I had to fight myself for my own case to make sure that I was able to stay in the military and make sure that people that did what they did was held accountable. Okay. And I also want to make sure that we understand something as well. In the military, they have their own investigator for sexual assault as well as domestic violence. They have two different reportings. They have restricted and non-restricted. So when they decide during the whole process to say, yes, this is non-fabricated information, and we are going to investigate to see if it's substantiated to where the charges should be implemented, then guess what? It will. But if they say no on a military base, guess what? It doesn't happen.
Right.
And you still remain a victim, and your family members remain a victim as well. Okay, even though we have these programs set up through the military, the advocacy programs all across the board, which they're supposed to provide the support of the victims of domestic violence, sexual assault. They're supposed to provide intervention programs, safety planning, training, medical treatment. Everything's supposed to be provided through these advocacy programs, but they're not doing it, because if it was, we would not have the numbers that we have today. We would not have soldiers getting killed on a base because their abuser decided to come on base, even though they was not supposed to, and kill them.
Have you?
So as I finish my presentation, as I said, so this is what I'm going into when I came to Virginia to discuss this with the military advisor at the Senate. I already discussed what changes need to be implemented in the Lautenberg Amendment when it comes to military personnel. When as a military personnel, when you get deployed, they have something called the Soldier Sellers Act, which meaning as you cannot get charged, or no charges or civil cases can be held against you while you are in a deployed zone. So that means, once again, you have to wait for that soldier to come back, and hopefully the statutes of limitation did not fall short of that, okay? Because I've been deployed for 18 months before, okay? Or overseas, if I was stationed in Germany, which I was for 3 years, that means you can't do anything to me till I return. And if those statutes of limitations are gone, then that victim gets no justice. So that's really all I have to say. We'll continue to work on this, and we'll continue to work with the people that are going to change this law. And as you can see at the bottom, I have my resources, my references here. You can look it up. It's called TC program, which is the Transitional Compensation Program through the military. And they just started it December 2019. And Cynthia can send that out. Thank you, Cynthia.
Wait, right there. Okay. All right. Do you guys have any questions before we end this section? We've been on for a little while. I hope that you guys, if you guys have any questions, I'm gonna leave it on to anybody here. I'm thankful to Commonwealth Amy Ashworth for being here and giving us some time. I know it was a little bit lengthy. If you guys have any questions for her, please do not forget to leave it in the comment section. So that, you know, if anyone does have it, we can definitely address it to you, if that's okay, you know, for anybody who comes into our, you know, to anybody who may be able to get to it. I didn't know if you have any questions about the Lautenberg Amendment or anybody, you know, about anything that was addressed about, you know, the amendment and how we wanted to change it or anything like that. I know that it's a little bit lengthy, and I know that it, you know, it has a lot to do with what we are definitely wanting to change for those who are in the military, and how we, you know, we want to be able to help families, not only for the victims, but also for our military members, you know. But, and so that's why, you know, it's so empowering to have you here, because our military are so important to us. And to have you here, just listening about the Lautenberg Amendment and about how it's so important, and just have you listening to that, really, it really brings a tear to my eye, because my son was a veteran himself, and so was my dad. And so, you know, thank you so much for just even taking your time out and just listening to all of these panel speakers, you know, just listening to Evangelist Patricia Fowler, you know, her story and her story of being a survivor, you know, listening to Twain Mason and being able to be here for Gisela Marquez, and, you know, how much, you know, her being here as well. You know, I'm thankful to her, and, you know, for her being here with Voice of Puerto Rico. We shared some time during, you know, the times of Hurricane Maria. I know that both of us have family members in Puerto Rico who actually dealt with Hurricane Maria. And so for us, we share a bond that is inseparable forever. We will never be separated. I mean, we dealt with some hurricanes. So yeah, we're inseparable, her and I. And I'm thankful for all of you ladies. I'm thankful, Kathy, for your sacrifice and also for your service, you know, being such an amazing soldier and a veteran. And thank you for your sacrifice for this country. And I'm thankful for all that you have done, you know, for your sacrifice in the United States Army. And so thank you so much. And thank you, ladies, for being advocates for domestic violence, all of you, you know, not only for kids, but for our families. It's difficult to kind of wear these badges on your shoulders, you know, because being an advocate for domestic violence is difficult. But thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope that you guys have a good night, and I hope that that you guys, you know, get some time off, spend it well with your families, and definitely you know, go spend some time with your friends, your families, and spend it well. Spend it well. Thanks again, and we're going to end this meeting now. Is that okay? Awesome. Thank you again. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye, Cynthia. Thank you. Nice meeting everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Bye.
Bye, guys.